Arthur of Brittany was the legal heir to half of Western Europe. He was captured by his uncle, King John of England. He was last seen alive in royal custody, and then his land was redistributed as if he were already dead. No body, no grave, no record. That is not a mystery. That is a closed case. In 1203, a teenage prince vanished inside one of the most documented governments in medieval Europe. Arthur of Brittany was not a nobody. He was recognized by France, supported by Breton nobles, and considered by many to be the rightful ruler of territories King John was trying to hold. When Arthur was captured, the English crown became responsible for him. That responsibility did not disappear. Arthur did. What makes this case extraordinary is not that we do not know how he died. It is that the kingdom acted as if his death had already been settled, without ever recording it. This episode follows the paper trail that replaced a person. Arthur of Brittany was not dangerous because he wanted to be king. He was dangerous because the law made him one. Arthur was the son of Geoffrey of Brittany, the elder brother of King John of England. That detail mattered more than any army. In the medieval world, inheritance did not always pass to the nearest living relative. In many regions, it passed through what was called representation, meaning the child of an older sibling could outrank a younger surviving brother. That principle was not obscure. It was already used in European succession disputes. It was debated by lawyers, cited by nobles, and recognized by foreign courts. Arthur's claim was therefore not a fantasy. It was a legal alternative. The French king recognized Arthur as the rightful Duke of Normandy. Breton nobles supported him as their legitimate ruler. Chroniclers did not describe him as a pretender. They described him as a claimant. That language is important because in medieval politics, language creates reality. As long as Arthur was alive, there were two possible futures for the English crown. One in which John ruled uncontested, and one in which Arthur replaced him. That uncertainty weakened John's authority. Every baron who swore loyalty to John had to consider whether that oath might one day be reversed. Every foreign power had to decide which claimant was safer to support. Every land grant John issued could be questioned if Arthur's claim later succeeded. Arthur did not need an army to destabilize John. He only needed to exist. This is why medieval succession disputes were so dangerous. They were not resolved by time. They were resolved by removing alternatives. Arthur was not just a rival. He was a legal contradiction. John's rule was valid only as long as Arthur's claim could be neutralized. And that is what made Arthur dangerous. Not ambition, not rebellion, but the simple fact that the law gave him a future that John could not erase with a decree. Arthur did not vanish in secrecy. He was captured during open war in 1202 while leading forces against King John in western France. This was not disputed. Chroniclers from both sides of the conflict recorded that Arthur had been taken alive. Once captured, Arthur was not treated as a common prisoner. He was moved into royal custody. That phrase matters. Royal custody meant the king was now legally responsible for him. High-ranking prisoners were assets. They could be ransomed, exchanged, used in negotiations. They were not ignored. Arthur was initially held in Falaise Castle, one of the main royal strongholds in Normandy. Later, records place him in Rouen, a political and administrative center. These locations were not chosen at random. They were places where important prisoners were kept because they were secure and supervised. Arthur was not hidden. His presence was known. This is where many modern retellings quietly go wrong. They imply Arthur vanished during chaos. He did not. He was being held in the most controlled spaces the English crown possessed. Guards were assigned. The crown was accountable. If Arthur died in custody, the king would be responsible. That is why what happens next is so significant. Arthur does not disappear when he is captured. He disappears after the crown takes responsibility for him. That difference is everything. Arthur does not vanish in a vacuum. He vanishes from a specific place at a specific moment under specific authority. After his capture, Arthur is moved between royal strongholds. Chroniclers place him first at Falaise, then later at Rouen. Rouen was not just a castle, it was an administrative center. It had scribes, clerks, and constant traffic of royal business. That makes it important, because when someone disappears in Rouen, they disappear inside the record, not outside it. The last reliable reference to Arthur as a living prisoner places him there in early 1203. After that, his trail changes, not with a death notice, not with a burial record, but with a shift in language. Instead of saying where Arthur is, sources begin to avoid saying anything specific at all. He is no longer described as held, no longer kept, no longer guarded. He becomes grammatically vague. This is how historical erasure begins. When a person stops being located, they stop being accountable. If Arthur had escaped, there would be alarms. If he had been transferred, there would be orders. If he had died publicly, there would be a date. None of that appears. What appears instead is nothing. But that nothing is not empty. It is surrounded by activity. Because while Arthur stops being named, everything else continues to be recorded. Courts meet. Orders are issued, lands are managed, the record is alive. It simply no longer includes Arthur. That tells us the disappearance was not chaos. It was selective. Arthur's last confirmed presence is not followed by confusion. It is followed by administrative normality, which means whatever happened to him was not considered disruptive. That is the clue. Arthur does not disappear from history because no one knew where he was. He disappears because the system stopped needing to say. Arthur disappears. What happens next is not silence. It is paperwork. Arthur was not just a person. He was a holder of land, titles, and legal rights. In medieval Europe, those did not vanish. When a person vanished, they had to be reassigned. And that is exactly what happens. Within months of Arthur's last appearance, the English crown begins issuing new grants over territories that legally belong to him. Brittany, Anjou, and other western lands do not remain in limbo. They are absorbed. New lords receive charters. Old allegiances are replaced. The map changes. This is not something that can happen if Arthur is merely missing. Missing people create legal problems. Dead people allow legal action, but Arthur is never declared dead. So how does the crown move his lands? by behaving as if his claim no longer exists. The documents do not say, Arthur is dead. They say, here's who owns this now. That is more powerful. Because medieval law was not based on what you said. It was based on what you did. And what the crown does is unmistakable. It reallocates Arthur's property. It treats his inheritance as vacant. It acts as if his legal identity has ended. That is not neutral. That is a conclusion. If Arthur were alive, these transfers would be contested. If Arthur were in captivity, they would be provisional. They are neither. They are final, and no one protests them. Not France, not Brittany, not Arthur's supporters. That silence is impossible unless the political world has accepted that Arthur is gone. Not rumored to be gone, administratively gone. This is the most important evidence in the entire case, not what chroniclers guess, what governments do. Arthur vanishes from the record. His lands are redistributed. The kingdom moves on. That is not mystery. That is closure. Here is what never happens. There is no death record for Arthur of Brittany, no burial, no grave, no funeral, no announcement from the crown. In medieval Europe, that is extraordinary. Noble deaths were recorded not out of respect, but because property and loyalty depended on them. When a noble died, his lands could be transferred, his titles could be reassigned, his obligations could end. A missing death creates chaos. And yet, Arthur's lands are transferred anyway. This means the crown acted as if Arthur was dead without saying so. That is not normal. If Arthur had died of illness, there would be a record. If he had been executed, there would be witnesses. If he had been murdered secretly and later acknowledged, there would still be a date. We have none of that. Instead, we have the effect of death without the documentation of death. That only works if everyone who mattered was told the same thing privately. Arthur did not need to be declared dead in public. He only needed to stop being part of the legal system, and that is exactly what happened. Chroniclers later speculate about murder. Those stories exist because people knew something had happened, but they had no access to the official outcome. So they filled the gap. What matters is not which rumor is true. What matters is why there was a gap at all. Because medieval governments did not leave gaps where property was involved. Arthur's case is the exception. He is treated as dead for administrative purposes, but never allowed to become dead on paper. That is how you erase someone without creating a case. No record means no investigation. No investigation means no responsibility. Arthur's disappearance is not an accident. It is a design. At this point, we do not need to know how Arthur died. The system already told us something more important. Arthur of Brittany was captured by the crown. He was last seen in royal custody. His lands were redistributed. His legal identity vanished, and no death was recorded. Those four facts cannot coexist by accident. In medieval Europe, property and power depended on documentation. If Arthur had escaped, he would still be claimed. If he had lived in hiding, his supporters would still exist. If he had been transferred, there would be records. Instead, the world behaves as if he no longer exists. That means the political system accepted his removal as final. not legally declared, practically enforced. This is what silence means in a medieval context, not confusion, authority. Someone decided that Arthur's fate no longer needed to be written, and once that decision was made, every institution followed it. Courts stopped mentioning him, clerks stopped recording him, allies stopped acting for him. History did not lose Arthur. It was instructed to let him go. And when a system as large as a medieval kingdom stops naming someone, that person is gone. Arthur was not unresolved. He was erased. Arthur of Brittany did not need a death certificate. He only needed to disappear from the page. Once his name vanished from the records, his claim vanished with it. That was enough. No one was ever punished. The truth faded, and history recorded what was convenient. This was a medieval cold case.